All right. So, Sydney, do you remember what we went over last time?
We went over Liu Pang.
And who was Liu Pang?
He was a little scrappy guy.
And who is Xian Yong? Or Xian Yu? Yes, Xian Yu.
Evil, not scrappy guy.
Oh, he was scrappy, but he was a big scrappy guy.
Very big.
Deal is, basically, Xian Yu and Liu Pang were two rebel leaders. And even though they were part of the same big rebel army, Liu Pang was a fairly nice, reasonable guy who was very charming and people liked and everything like that and got along well with others, while Xian Yu was a violent maniac who went around killing everybody. And they came to an agreement where whichever one of them could get their army to the imperial capital first would become the new king of China.
King of China.
That's right. Thing is, Liu Pang got a head start, and just to make sure that Xian Yu could not catch up, he caused an avalanche in a valley that Xian Yu would have to pass through, so by the time Xian Yu got there, it was covered in rocks, and he had a very hard time getting through.
Yes.
Liu Pang thought that was the end of it. Liu Pang was the first one to the capital, and he thought, yeah, he'd be the king of China. And everybody was worried when he invaded the imperial capital, but he was gentle, he was friendly, he did not go pillaging or stealing anything. He was very professional and friendly, just sort of saying, hey guys, I'm going to try to, renovate things, make your lives better, everything's going to be good. And just when things were looking up and everybody was like, hey, maybe Liu Pang will be a nice leader, Liu Pang got a messenger warning him that Xian Yu was coming. And Xian Yu looked very, very mad. Thing is, he basically knew that even though the deal was that whoever got the imperial capital first would get to become king, he knew that Xian Yu was the sort of guy who was not going to let, being reasonable or fair get in the way of wanting to be in charge. So his new plan was just try to figure out a way to prevent himself from getting killed by Xian Yu when Xian Yu did arrive. So Xian Yu's brother was the one who brought the message that Xian Yu was coming, and Liu Pang gave him a big welcome and had, dinner with the guy, and they went out drinking and having fun and talking and everything like that. And by the end of their little meeting, Xian Yu's brother thought that Liu Pang was an awesome guy, totally good, and that this was all just a misunderstanding. And all that Liu Pang did was just try to get the city ready for Xian Yu when he showed up. And the avalanche, he had nothing to do with that. He didn't do anything fishy. Him and Xian Yu are still buddies, and Xian Yu was welcome to come to the city and take over. Okay? And that's the message that the brother brought back to Xian Yu. But Xian Yu was only half convinced about this, and he invited Liu Pang to come to his camp, where all of the soldiers were, to talk about things in person. So Liu Pang went with one of his, sidekicks, with one of his soldiers, to visit Xian Yu's camp. And it was a difficult situation, because the thing is, even though Xian Yu was, big and dumb enough to believe, and arrogant enough to believe that Liu Pang would just go and get the city ready for him, he had a guy named Fan Seng who worked for him. And I told you that Xian Yu was the sort of guy who was very violent and an amazing fighter, but he sort of needed a guy to be his brains, sort of thing. Exactly. And Fan Seng was sort of Xian Yu's brains. Xian Yu was the sword and the power behind the army, but Fan Seng was the guy who did all the strategy. And he warned Xian Yu that Liu Pang was not to be trusted, and Liu Pang was a sneaky little dude who they should not trust. But Xian Yu, again, was just like, it's fine. My brother says he's fine. I'm sure it's fine. And so Liu Pang came in for dinner in the tent of Xian Yu. And so he sat down, him and his buddy, having dinner with Xian Yu, the violent psychopath, Xian Yu's brother, and Fan Seng, who thought Liu Pang was not to be trusted and should be murdered. So can you see this being kind of an awkward situation?
Yes.
And as things went on, Fan Seng kept on hinting to Xian Yu to kill Liu Pang. But Xian Yu, again, was not very bright and did not pick up on these hints. So Fan Seng said, "Excuse me," and left for a moment, and came back with somebody to kill Liu Pang. But again, Fan Seng liked to be subtle about things, so the way he did it was he just sort of said, this guy brought in is just going to do a sword dance. It's an entertaining dance where he spins around with a sword right near everybody. He's totally not going to chop Liu Pang's head off or anything. But Liu Pang could kind of get the tone of things, and so could Xiang Yu's brother. So even as Xiang Yu was the only guy in the room dumb enough to not understand what was going on, and just told everybody, "Sit down and watch the sword dance. It's gonna be awesome." Xiang Yu's brother actually stood up partway through the sword dance and kept himself part of the dance between the dancer and Liu Pang. And in the process, the sword dancer could never actually come in and kill Liu Pang. So, in a very real sense, Xiang Yu's brother saved Liu Pang's life. Because again, they went out hanging out and they sort of became buddies and everything like that. So it's a very, very good thing for Liu Pang that Xiang Yu was there, because otherwise the sword dancer would have killed him. So, at this point, they kind of realized that things were getting a little bit fishy, sort of thing, and Liu Pang sort of said, "Gee, guys, I had a really fun time and everything like that, but I just gotta go to the bathroom. I'll be right back." And so he left the tent and told his soldier buddy guy, "This is crazy. I'm leaving. Okay, just tell them I had something came up. I just gotta go. I gotta go." And so Liu Pang went running off in the night, and it took Xiang Yu a while to realize he's not coming back, is he? Which unfortunately meant that Xiang Yu A was actually mad at Liu Pang, and B, worse for everybody else, this meant that nobody was there to stop Xiang Yu from being the one to go to the capital now. Now, you remember when Liu Pang went to the capital, everybody was relieved because it went very well, and he was very friendly and respectful and everything like that. Xiang Yu, when he came to the capital to become king, he had a different idea of how things should go. He killed tons of people, he executed tons of people, he declared himself king, and just to prove his power, he burned the city to the ground.
Okay.
Yes. And this next little anecdote might be just part of legend sort of thing, but just to give you an idea of either how bad the fire was or at least how bad it seemed, they said that the fire across this gigantic city took 3 months before every last trace of it had gone out. That apparently just kept on being more and more to burn, because it was a huge, rich, fancy place with tons of materials and food and people and everything like that. So this fire burned for either 3 months actually, or at least for such a long time that it entered legend as being 3 months. And that is the sort of guy that Xiang Yu was. And then after having declared himself king and burning down the capital, he said that he was going to make a new capital back in his hometown. And his reason for this was the following. He said, "To become rich and famous without going home is like putting on a beautiful robe and taking a walk at night. Who's to know about it?" Basically saying that what's the point of me being the new awesome guy in charge of all of China if I don't go home and brag about it? Because Xiang Yu was
A jerk face.
a jerkface. And everybody else thought so too, and so one of the people in the capital who he had already killed said that Xiang Yu was nothing but an ape wearing a hat. And Xiang Yu overheard that and had that man boiled alive. So, Xiang Yu was now basically in charge of China and was just marching back home to establish the new capital. Liu Pang, meanwhile, was no longer trusted by Xiang Yu, so Xiang Yu they were still technically allied sort of thing, because they were both part of the rebel army that took over, but Xiang Yu did not trust Liu Pang, so had him kicked out to the mountains on the edge of China, thinking that, "That's it, Liu Pang, he'll starve out there, never gonna have to deal with him again." But Xiang Yu was again underestimating Liu Pang. Because Liu Pang went out to the mountains, and he also tore down all the rickety bridges across the mountain paths as he passed over them, so Xiang Yu could not follow him, because he didn't trust Xiang Yu either. And out in the mountains, he slowly used the fact that he was a charming, friendly guy who people actually liked to build an army. Because the thing is, Xiang Yu was just busy, thinking he was the best and he already won. So Liu Pang could build this army, go around, gather people together, and eventually, out in the mountains, he had a nice big army put together, ready to use it to take China back from Xiang Yu. Okay? And let me you can wait for just one moment. I just want to get the next details right, because it gets some